So Embark made some big changes in the latest update to the finals, and sometimes it's hard to tell exactly why a change was made or what it will actually end up doing in practice. So in this video, I'm going to try and explain what all of these changes actually mean for the game, and more importantly, for you. This is going to be a longer video, so I'm going to have things timestamped below for your convenience. Alright, let's take a look at the weapon changes. So the first weapon that I want to talk to you about is the ARN-220. Now this is a new assault rifle for light. Now this thing has a very interesting gimmick to it. If you use up all of your ammo in the magazine, you get this super fast reload, which allows you to basically stay in the fight for longer. Now this is interesting because if you only use part of the ammo in the magazine, you're going to get the full reload. But you can only do this reload once, and you can keep track of which state you are on over on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. So as you can see, I have 2 bars right now, but if I quickly activate that fast reload, I only have 1 bar now. And because I only have 1 bar, that means that my next reload is going to be the long one. But obviously, if you manually reload at any point, it's just going to do the full reload animation. Now, this thing is a little bit of an unfortunate weapon at the moment because the recoil for it is pretty insane. This is like Rainbow Six recoil. It's pretty bad. And considering that the gun doesn't do as much DPS as some of the other weapons on light, it's in a bit of a weird spot right now. Not to mention that while this fast mag is kind of cool, very rarely are you going to be in a fight for this long as a light player. You're going to mostly be just like dipping in and out of engagements constantly. So having this fast mag as a light isn't super helpful. It's a neat gimmick, but I don't really see many use cases for it outside of maybe trying to DPS someone stealing a cash out. I should mention though that the hipfire on it is pretty decent. However, the medium CB01 repeater is very good. This thing hits like a truck. It can 2-shot lights, either to the body or the head, it doesn't matter. And if you want to kill a medium, it is 2 shots to the head, and it'll be 3 shots to the body. And with heavy, I recommend aiming for the head because it'll take 3 shots to kill a heavy to the head. But if you want to aim for the body, it's going to take either 5 shots or 4 shots and a quick melee. The range on this thing is pretty good, and if you manage to hit headshots over range, this thing still does a ton of damage. In terms of hipfire on this thing, it's very inconsistent. Yeah, it's not especially great, but like if you're this close to your target, I mean, I guess you can hit fire. But what I would recommend doing is just quick scoping ADS like that. Honestly, this gun kind of feels like the model 1887 if it had a slug round in it. So if you were a big fan of the pre-nerf model, you might like this gun. Because as I mentioned before, it's great at range, and if you're quick scoping like this, you can basically use it like a shotgun. Before I move on to the minigun, I do want to mention that if you use up all the ammo on this weapon here, you get a much faster reload than you normally would. So just like the model, once again, it incentivizes you to use all of the bullets in your weapon. Now here is the minigun. This thing is definitely interesting. It does a pretty decent amount of damage, but as you can see right here, you kind of want to be very close to your target. If you're going to try fighting someone from range like this, you're probably going to die because their weapon is going to be much more accurate than yours, and you move very slowly when firing this thing. Now, I'll demonstrate kind of the spread that this weapon has right here. It has a little bit of recoil, so you do have to do a little bit of control, but it's not a ton. But if you aim down sights, it is actually slightly more accurate. Not a ton, mind you, but slightly. So the effective range for this gun is, I would recommend kind of being like within this range, you're going to be doing a lot of damage, like right about here. So if you have bad aim, this weapon is obviously going to be very, very forgiving. Now, you can try to like pre-prime the barrel like this, and you can kind of like do slide jumps to move around like that. This is a strategy that you can do. And I should also mention that if you are using ADS, you will pre-rev your barrel like this, and you can just start firing immediately. In terms of specializations, I'm honestly not sure what to use with this. Right now, I have Winch Claw because you can rev it like this and then winch and do something like that. So maybe Winch Claw. You could also maybe use Goo Gun to like lock someone in like that and start revving up. It's something you can do. And then obviously I would recommend also like using a Dome Shield like that if you can. I'd recommend using Dome Shield with this at least. Now, for balance changes for some of the existing weapons and gadgets in the game. So they did buff the Anti-Grav Cube, and they decreased the cooldown from 40 seconds to 35 seconds, and they increased the effect radius from 3.5 meters to 4 meters. So now it's going to be roughly this big now. If you want to, you can kind of become an attack helicopter with this thing. It's pretty silly, but maybe not super practical. Now, this thing has a much wider area of effect, so hopefully it should be more consistent. So basically what this means for you is that the gravity cube is going to be more consistent, and you should have it for more engagements more often. Next up, they did end up changing the APS turret slightly. I can't really show you here in the practice range because none of the bots really throw gadgets at it, but they decreased the damage taken per projectile destroyed from 40% to 31.25% of total health, meaning that a full health APS can block 4 projectiles now instead of 3. But if you end up hitting like a couple shots on the APS, it might only end up blocking 3 instead of 4. But the APS is going to be countering a lot more things, but obviously the counter for this thing is still probably Goo Gun. Now, they changed Data Reshaper. Data Reshaper actually got a nerf. It now only has 2 charges instead of 3, which is kind of wild to me, at least for someone who plays in higher elo. Data Reshaper was kind of cool, but it wasn't super competitive. But they kind of mentioned that this change was to basically make it easier for Guardian Turret players to play the game, because apparently, I suppose some of you out there who like using Guardian Turret were getting hard countered by Data Reshaper, so I guess I can see this change being a thing. I would have rather had it maybe take like 2 reshapes to change turret or something like that, but whatever the case may be, Data Reshaper got a nerf. Now, 2 of my favorite gadgets for light in the game, Glitch Grenade and Gravity Vortex, did end up getting buffs. They decreased the fuse time from 1.8 seconds to 1.5 seconds on Glitch Grenade, which basically means if you throw it like this, it's going to detonate ever so slightly early. Obviously, I would recommend still just throwing this straight at dome shields or mesh shields, but it should be more consistent now. Now, the Gravity Vortex also got changes as well. They made it so that you cannot throw this thing nearly as far. You used to be able to chuck this thing kind of like it was a grenade, but now it has a much shorter range, and it has a much more aggressive arc. However, they did change the minimum and maximum durations for this gadget, so this thing should last longer, like this. And you'll see it right here. So as you can see, you're able to stall either opponents or cash outs for a bit longer than you used to be able to. They did also buff the tracking dart to now last for 13 seconds instead of 10 seconds. Tracking dart is still kind of a niche gadget. It's a nice buff, I suppose, but I don't imagine that this will make too many people switch over to tracking dart. Now, they mentioned that they changed the fuse time for red barrels. It used to be about 3 seconds, so let's take a look at what it is now. So now it's kind of like 2.5 seconds? I don't know. Editing Ronin will show you on the screen. Basically, they said that because the damage used to be higher, they thought that the longer fuse time would make more sense. But now that it doesn't do as much damage, they figured that the shorter fuse time makes a little bit more sense. Now, we got a Cloak Nerf. Yes, that's right. We got a Cloak Nerf. Basically, they made it easier to spot a cloak player and also make it longer for them to get into their fully cloaked state. So now, if I want to fully cloak like this, it takes a little bit longer for me to do so, and I am ever so slightly more visible than I used to be. So what does this actually mean in practice? Well, obviously this means that you're going to see cloak players a lot more easily. What I used to do is I ran cloak with things like V9S and M11 and things like that. Some more close range weapons. But now with these changes, if you're running close range weapons, I would actually recommend that you probably switch over to evasive dash. I mean, we'll have to wait a little bit more to see how much this change actually is going to change up the meta. But from what I can tell right now, I might start switching some of your close range weapons to evasive dash. Like for instance, M11 now, what you used to be able to do is you used to be able to do some DPS like this and then kind of reposition. But now that you're going to be more easier to spot, it might just be better to run evasive dash. I mean, it's really up to you at the end of the day, but for some weapons like this, I'm probably going to end up doing that. But for other weapons like the LH1 or maybe the XP54, I would still say that Cloak is a pretty decent spec to run with it. Now, Winch Claw ended up getting some changes as well. they increased the max range from 10 meters to 12 meters. So it used to only go about this far, but now I could hit this target from way over here. They also changed the stun durations on it. So basically, if you hit someone from the winch claw from farther away, they're going to get stunned longer versus from close range if you're just using it as like a melee cancel tactic or something along those lines. The winch claw isn't going to stun them for quite as long as if you were to hit them from further away. Now, the thing that I should note here is that these increased stun times only affect weapons and gadgets. The stun time for specializations will remain the same. So basically, if you get hit by a winch claw and you're using evasive dash, your evasive dash timing will be the exact same as it used to be. It's just your weapons and your gadgets that are going to remain stunned for a little bit longer. Now, they said that they improved the recoil for the AKM, and this is what it looks like now. They basically said that they made the recoil smoother, but like the pattern and everything should still remain the same. Now we've got a bit of a bigger change for the CL40. They increased the size of the inner blast radius from 30 centimeters to 60 centimeters, meaning it should be easier to deal maximum damage, and they increased the speed of the grenade projectile from 35 meters a second to 42 meters a second. They also decreased the gravity modifier from 1 to 0.9. So basically, this thing is going to be way more consistent. So normally I'd have to be like firing almost directly on someone to be dealing maximum damage, but now I can kind of like fire pretty close to them, and I should still be doing a decent bit of damage here. However, this thing is still going to remain inconsistent against some with a jump pad, with an APS, or someone on height, so just do be aware of that. I wouldn't say that the CL40 is a meta now, but it's definitely better than it used to be. Now, Dagger. They made some buffs to the Dagger. They increased the damage of regular attacks from 50 damage to 60 damage. So now if you are left clicking just like that, you should be able to kill people a lot faster. They also increased the damage of non-backstab secondary attacks from 50 to 75. And what that means is basically if you get like a right click on someone like right in front of you, they're going to take more damage now. So basically what this means is that if you end up like messing up your right click or something like that, you should be able to kill people a little bit faster. Now, I did want to test something because they talked about like changing the cone modifier and stuff in a previous update. But from what I'm telling right here, like I can still be kind of like behind someone just like that, and I can still get a backstab on people. So I'm not sure if they changed this before in a previous patch and I just didn't notice, or if this was something that they left out of the patch notes. You guys can let me know on that one, but I just thought I'd bring it up. So basically, if you want to do the evasive dash thing like that, you should still be able to do it. Now, with the FAMAS, just like the AKM, they said that they made the recoil feel a lot smoother. And honestly, that looks a lot smoother to me. So yeah, the FAMAS should feel a little bit easier to aim now. Now, FCAR, this is a big change. They decreased the recoil intensity from bullets 5 to 7 in the firing sequence, making the weapons slightly more stable. Now, for you FCAR enjoyers out there, you will have known already that when you are firing a weapon like this, the bullets right in this area would like jump a ton and kind of mess up a lot of people's aim. So now the FCAR should just feel a lot smoother overall now. They also buffed the KS23 with a pump action speed increase. So now instead of being 0.82 seconds until you can fire your next shot, it is now 0.7 seconds. So basically they upped the DPS on this thing. Now we've got LH1. Big nerfs for LH1. They ended up decreasing the damage from 46 to 40. That's a big change. So basically your time to kill versus lights is going to remain roughly the same. But against mediums, it is now going to take 4 headshots to kill them. And get this, it is going to take 7 body shots to kill a medium. That's a lot of body shots. Now, for heavy, it's even worse. It's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 headshots to kill a heavy. And it is going to be 9 body shots to kill a heavy. Yeah. Honestly, I think this is a fair enough change. The LH1 was pretty oppressive from basically every single range, and there was not really any reason to not run this weapon. So hopefully this makes it so that while it can still do pretty decent damage from range, especially if you're aiming for the head, it's not going to just melt you from across the map anymore. So with the M11, they increased the damage fall off max range from 15 meters to 17.5 meters, giving the weapon a slightly longer effective range. And they also decreased the damage fall-off multiplier from 0.62 to 0.52, meaning the weapon now does slightly less damage at range. Basically, what this means is that you're not going to be, like, super shredding people from long range anymore unless you have really great recoil control, like I just kind of showed right there. Like, you can kind of do it on people, but many, many other light weapons are going to be much better from that range. Once again, I think this is making it so that dash with M11 is going to be much better than cloak, basically letting you close that distance way more often and kind of be more evasive, especially with both the cloak nerfs and the M11 range nerfs. Now, M60 got a buff. They increased the damage from 19 to 20, and they also increased the damage fall-off max range from 32 meters to 35 meters, and they also increased the damage fall-off multiplier from 0.4 to 0.5, which basically means this thing does more damage at range, and it does more damage in general. So as you can see right here, it still has a lot of recoil, but you're going to be a lot more consistent from those longer ranges. Honestly, I think this gun is actually probably competitive with the Lewis gun at the moment. I'm going to have to do a bit of a deeper dive into it, but from at least general impressions from what I have here, and based off of my own time with the Lewis gun, I'd say that I wouldn't fault you for running M60 over the Lewis gun now. I feel like you could use either at this point. Now, Pike got a few nerfs. They basically decreased just its damage range in general, so now it doesn't quite have as much effective range, but they did also decrease the visual recoil, so now it should be easier to aim, but it doesn't do quite as much damage at range now. So as you can see, it looks a lot cleaner now, and the damage is still the same, obviously, but the main difference is when you're going to be like shooting at someone from this range, it's not going to do quite as much damage, but obviously it still does a fair amount. I still think this gun is going to be really, really good. Now, the SA-12 got a bit of a nerf here. It did get a little bit of a ranged buff, but overall, I think this is an SA-12 nerf. They decreased the pellet count from 13 to 12, so now this is what the general spread of the gun looks like. Looks like about that. And that means because they changed the pellet count, it no longer does 78 damage per shot, but now does 72 damage per shot, which means that the DPS isn't going to be quite as good as it used to be, but obviously this thing is still going to be pretty good in long range. You'll also know that over on the bottom right corner of the screen, they added the different sort of cylinders that the SA-12 rotates between, so now you can keep track of which one you're on. However, they did give this thing a little bit of a range buff, so before you kind of had to be like this close to someone to really do well with this gun, but now you can kind of be about like this distance away, and you can still be doing pretty all right. Now, the biggest thing I think you're going to notice with these damage changes is that you used to be able to just straight up two-shot a light with the SA-12, and it had some of the fastest time to kills in the game. Now it's going to take 3 shots to kill a light. So honestly, if you're a light, I still wouldn't be getting this close to an SA-12 user in general, but you might survive a couple more times than you normally would have. But honestly, what I think this did is with the range increase, this is honestly buffed using SA-12 with mesh shield, because now you can kind of play a little bit more at this mid-range. And while obviously using the Winch Claw is still going to be pretty good with this weapon, I think that it's more viable with Mesh Shield now than it used to be. And then finally, the XP54 ended up getting a buff as well. They increased the damage from 16 to 17. They also increased the damage fall-off minimum range from 20 meters to 22.5 meters, giving the weapon a slightly longer effective range. And they also increased damage fall-off max range from 30 to 32.5, once again giving the weapon a slightly longer effective range. So basically what this did is that it now has more range and it does more damage. So basically from like this range right here, this thing is going to be a lot more consistent. I honestly think the XP might be the gun to use over the LH1 at this point. So yeah, XP54 is officially back. Now, there's a bunch of animation changes that they made, and a lot of these are just to make the game feel a lot more smoother, but there is one in here that I want to point out. They fixed winch canceling. You used to be able to do an animation cancel with the winch. You used to be able to basically fire 4 shots with the SA-12 and then fire the winch, and it would cancel that reload animation there. But now, as you can see, you still have to play the animation. So if I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm going to winch this guy over here, I have to reload again. So yeah, this is a bit of a nerf to the SA-12 winch combo. This just goes to go again that I think Mesh SA-12 might be better than it used to be, but obviously the play now I think is just to grab someone right away and then get the winch on them. instead of trying to do winch cancels or like stun locks or something like that. Then once again, they have added a bunch of things like TDM. They ended up removing Bankit. They made a bunch of bug fixes to maps. They improved performance on Kyoto yet again. But there are two big things in this final patch note. And the first one is, I know a lot of you have been asking for this, a sorry emote that you can use, or a sorry message, I should say. So you can say this, you kind of do this funny little hand gesture, I guess, but you no longer have to spam something else. You can now use sorry or something like that. They also say that goo no longer slows down the platform in power shift, and they adjusted the speed at which the platform moves based on the amount of players on it. So if you have one player on it, it's going to go 8.33% faster. If you have two players on it, it's going to go 3.33% faster than it used to be. And with 3 players, it is the exact same as it used to be. Now, this is the part where I'm going to say, I told you so. I made a video a while back where I said that goo slowed down the platform, and some of y'all didn't believe me. You know who you are. Well, who's laughing now? I guess Embark is, because they changed it. But this goes to show that I was right and you were wrong. They also added a bunch of sights to all the weapons, but for those of you who are wondering, no, Pike did not get red dots, and no, unfortunately, you cannot attach an HCOG to the sledgehammer. Sorry. But yeah, those are all of the important changes and what they mean for you in the latest 6.0 patch for the finals. Once again, if you appreciate these patch note breakdowns, let me know down in the comments below. I'm going to get a feel for all of the new weapons and all the different changes, but hopefully within a week or two, I should have the Season 6 weapon tier list ready to go. So if you want to be notified when that comes out, make sure that you subscribe. All right, thanks for watching, everybody, and I will see you in the next one.